The gate creaked open, and Liselotte froze. Beyond the wire, laughter, but not the kind she expected. Under the Texas sun, where she had imagined soldiers and punishment, she saw a young American man, wearing wide hats and dusty boots, arguing over horses. One of them looked up, smiled through the glare, and said, "You ever ridden before?" For a moment, Liselotte couldn't answer. She had crossed an ocean in fear, expecting chains, and now she was being asked if she could ride. This wasn't Germany. This was Texas. Liselotte Brandt had not been a soldier. Before the war, she'd studied literature in Dresden. But when the Reich called for volunteers, she joined as a medical assistant, tending to wounded men in North Africa. In 1943, her field hospital was captured by the Allies. She and 36 other women, nurses, clerks, and Red Cross aides, were taken as prisoners of war. They thought they'd be sent to a camp in Europe. Instead, weeks later, they stepped off a train into the blinding heat of Texas. The air was dry and sharp. The wind carried the smell of dust and cattle. The guards shouted in English, words she barely understood. The sun rose over the camp, spilling light through the barracks windows. Liselotte smelled something impossible, coffee, real coffee. When she stepped outside, she saw American soldiers laughing near a mess tent, their voices light, unthreatening. The prisoners were led to breakfast, eggs, bread, fruit. Not scraps, not cruelty. They feed us like humans, she thought. But why? Over the next weeks, Liselotte learned the rhythm of captivity. Roll call at dawn. Work assignments. The endless Texas heat. At first, every kindness felt like a trap. When a guard offered her water, she refused. When another handed her a book, she looked for hidden mockery. But slowly, small moments chipped at her fear. A Red Cross nurse named Marjorie began visiting the women. She spoke German poorly, but smiled constantly. When Liselotte burned her hand in the kitchen, Marjorie treated it gently, humming a hymn as she worked. "You remind me of my sister," Marjorie said softly. Liselotte didn't know what to say. She hadn't been compared to anyone's sister in years. Later, a truck arrived, not with weapons but books, English novels, German poetry, even a copy of Faust. The Americans let the prisoners set up a small library. Liselotte, once a literature student, was chosen to manage it. She ran her fingers along the spines, whispering familiar names. Goethe, Schiller, Rilke. "Maybe they're trying to trick us," she wrote that night. "Or maybe they're trying to remind us that we are still capable of thought." Then came the music. On Saturday nights, from beyond the wire, came the sound of fiddles and guitars. The locals, cowboys, ranchers, their families, played what they called honky-tonk. At first, the women covered their ears. But Helga, the youngest among them, began tapping her foot. Soon others joined. Liselotte found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time since Tunisia. Still, every joy hurt. It reminded her of what she had lost, her home, her youth, her certainty. One evening, she stood by the fence, watching the sunset. The sky burned orange over the flat horizon. If this is prison, she thought, then what was freedom? She didn't know the truth why ET.BY summer. Liselotte was assigned to outdoor work, helping local ranchers during harvest. That's when she met Cal Jenkins, the same foreman who'd spoken at their arrival. He was broad-shouldered, sunburned, and wore a hat that looked older than he was. He handed Liselotte a rope and pointed to a Palomino mare. "You sure you can handle her, ma'am?" he asked, teasing. She frowned, not understanding. He laughed, and taking care of the folks he's supposed to be fighting. Liselotte looked at him carefully and said, "War makes enemies out of people who might have shared bread." Cal nodded. "Guess you're right." Rumors spread that the German women were being treated too kindly. Some officers frowned upon the horseback lessons, but the Texans stood firm. "They're not soldiers," Cal said. "They're women, and we're not savages." So the horses stayed, and the fear faded. That autumn, Liselotte was asked to translate for a new group of prisoners, captured U-boat men from the Atlantic. They arrived angry, defiant. One spat at a guard. Liselotte stepped forward, her voice steady. "Stop this nonsense. Look around you. They feed us, They treat us. They let us live. Hate has already destroyed enough. The man glared. You sound like them. She turned away, whispering, maybe I do, because kindness is not surrender. That night, she wept, not out of shame, but release. By spring 1945, the war in Europe had ended. The radio in the camp crackled. Germany had surrendered. Some women fell to their knees. Others stared blankly at the sky. Liselotte felt hollow, as if part of her had been erased. Home, she thought. What is home now? Weeks later, orders came. The women would be repatriated. The Texans didn't celebrate the victory with cruelty. Instead, they held a quiet gathering by the corral. Coffee, music, a few kind words. Cal found Liselotte brushing the Palomino mare. He leaned against the fence, hat in hand. So, he said, looks like you ladies will be going home soon. She nodded, eyes lowered. Home, she repeated softly. I don't even know what that means anymore. Cal looked out toward the horizon. Maybe not the one you left, but you'll build a new one. Folks always do. She smiled faintly. And you? Will you remember us? He chuckled. Ma'am, some folks you don't forget, even if the war tells you to. When the trucks came, Liselotte lined up with the others. But this time, she didn't tremble. As she climbed aboard, she looked back one last time, at the horses, the fences, the waving cowboys. Texas had been her prison, but somehow, it had also been her salvation. Ending 33:00, 35:00. Years later, in 1957, a letter arrived at the Jenkins ranch. It came from Bremen, Germany. Inside was a small photograph, a woman standing beside a white horse. On the back, written in neat English, for the man who taught me that freedom begins in the heart. Signed, Liselotte Brandt. Cal smiled, folded the photo, and set it beside his hat. Outside, the Texas wind rustled the grass, and somewhere, a horse whinnied softly. Narrator, closing line war took everything. Homes, faith, and certainty. But in a forgotten camp in Texas, where barbed wire met open sky, humanity quietly survived. They expected chains,